Hello Anglophonians! Today it is time to return to a certain forest where a certain small village is. Yes, time to visit the Smurfs again. This episode is called Smurfony in C. Yes, and it's a story that starts rather funny, but then turns out to get pretty tragic.
The year the story is scheduled to be published is 1963. To be precise, the story is scheduled to appear in Spirou magazine's Christmas special. The author of the Smurfs, Peyo, suffered from chronic overwork. With the success of the little blue creatures, he became more and more involved in other activities, so he needed someone to help him draw. His assistant, who went by the stage name Will, has already assisted him with another series. Two other comic book writers, Gérard Dequeux and Francis, had different ambitions. But then, at the beginning of the summer of 1963, Peyo was introduced to the then 17 years old François Walthéry. François Walthéry published his first comic series, Peyo et Compagnie, based on texts by Mittey, at the age of 16 in the weekly magazine Junior. He had actually applied directly to Dupuis for Spirou magazine, but was turned down. But Spirou's then editor-in-chief, Yvan Delporte, spotted the talent and knew Peyo was looking for an assistant. So he brought the two together. Walthéry's test was to be working on the story Smurfony in C. The Smurfs are very excited. The famous Smurfony in C is about to be performed. Unfortunately, there's only one problem. The Smurfony in C is a piece for an orchestra. But in the village of the Smurfs, there's only one musician. Papa Smurf is desperate, but everyone comes up with an idea. Each Smurf should build their own instrument, and they then can perform the piece of music together. As the Smurfs get to work, we see Gargamel getting upset that he still hasn't caught the Smurfs. He swears revenge. After all, the Smurfs have finished building their musical instruments and want to start making music. But there is a Smurf playing the trumpet, and that Smurf is totally unmusical. His bum disturbs the Smurfony. But not only that, he can only elicit weird sounds from any musical instrument he plays. So he is sent away by the others. In the forest, he starts playing his trumpet to himself, where Gargamel hears him. The sorcerer realizes what the problem is and devises an evil plan. He disguises himself as a fairy godmother and gives the Smurf a magical wind instrument. Anyone can play this and only beautiful sounds come out. Excited, the trumpet Smurf returns to the village to demonstrate the new instrument to his comrades. When he plays it, a beautiful melody does come out of the instrument, but the tones lull anyone who hears them in a deep sleep. And suddenly Gargamel is standing in the village of the Smurfs. He had followed the trumpet Smurf. The trumpet Smurf now faces the evil magician alone, because everyone else is asleep and defenseless. The story was developed by Peyo together with the editor-in-chief Yvan Delporte, and it has similarities to The Smurfs and the Magic Flute. Only this time, the melody that comes out of the instrument doesn't make the listeners dance. Peyo wanted to use Walthéry fully to draw the story, but that didn't work. Walthéry had trouble drawing the Smurfs in Peyo's style. Nevertheless, like Delporte, Peyo recognized the young man's potential. So he used him for things he was good at.
He asked me to rather draw a whole set of musical instruments, because in this story the Smurfs form their own orchestra. So I drew a piano made out of a tree trunk and stuff like that.
Smurfony in C started right on time in the Christmas special and finished 3 months later in Spirou magazine. But more was required. The stories about the Smurfs have so far been rather short and therefore unsuitable for appearing as a separate comic book. To do this, several stories had to be combined. That should change now, but the stories would have to be at least twice as long as before. That issue should be tackled next. If we look at the year 1963, a few events stand out. It is the year in which the American President John F. Kennedy visits Berlin and says the famous words, "Ich bin ein Berliner." By the way, the grammar is wrong here. Kennedy wants to express that one can be proud of being a resident of the city of Berlin. As the Romans once said, "Civis Romanus sum." That means, I am a citizen of Rome. But the sentence should then read correctly, "Ich bin Berliner." With the Ein Berliner, Kennedy is actually saying that he's a fried pastry made of sweet yeast dough with a jam filling. Because this is Ein Berliner. On the tragic side of history, 1963 is also the year that John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas. But there is also hope. Through the appearance of the civil rights activist Dr. Martin Luther King, the civil rights movement, with its demand for equal rights for African Americans, gains prominence. Here too, a speech is given, and here too, words are spoken that we still can hear today. I have a dream. There were many events in 1963, but we still have to go into one thing with regard to the future, the so-called Seegfröne. The term literally means frozen lake and describes the rare event that happened for the last time in the first month of 1963. Lake Constance froze over completely. An extremely cool summer, long-lasting easterly winds and very cold weather in autumn and winter are required for Lake Constance to freeze. Then Lake Constance can completely freeze over in January or February. According to the records of the previous Seegfrönen, the next one would be long overdue. But will we ever see anything like this again in our lifetime? Or in this century? There are conservatives and reactionaries who always talk about the good old days that they would like to bring back. What they are missing is that that's part of it too, the climate, which has changed drastically since that time. In this series, we also look back to the old days. What was it like back then when the comics that we call classics today were created? But that has nothing to do with the fact that we say that things have to be the same today as they were then. A lot of pioneering work has been done, that's true. But we've also made progress. We can't turn back time. We should look at what it was like, learn from the past and then face the problems of the future. Not by magic, but with the great spirit of innovation that characterizes us humans. All of these creative artists we're talking about here hold a mirror up to us. Also Peyo and his Smurfs, as we shall see very clearly in the next story. Here too, it is about mistakes of the past that we must not repeat in the future. And all of this is told with the help of small blue creatures.
So there you have it. This was Smurfony in C. And until next time, surround yourself with nice people, stay safe, stay healthy, see you